Alright, I am B Rose, and welcome to Truth Talk. Today, I want to talk a little bit about Agenda 2030. I'm sure that you've seen the things going on lately in the news, train derailments, toxic chemicals, and a couple weeks ago it was a balloon. So it's just a never-ending stream of events that the media feeds us. And I want to talk about all these things a little bit and why they tie into the larger agenda at play. Okay, Agenda 2030, what is it? Well, if you just go type it in and look it up, it says that it is a sustainable development project that they are working on for 2030. It's supposed to be this kind of eco-friendly climate change plan of action. And if you read what they tell you they're going to do, on the surface, it looks like a very good thing. It looks like a great idea. However, knowing our government and just looking a tiny bit beneath the surface, it is not good. In fact, it is very bad. But they are kind of trying to slip this under everyone's radar and tell them what a great thing it is in order to get everyone to go along with it. So let's just take a look at what they are claiming. So here is the diagram that they put out for Agenda 2030's plan of action, right? And once again, on the surface, it looks great. No poverty, zero hunger, good health, decent work. All of these things seem nice. But these are solutions to problems that they have created. And if you haven't noticed, it's always a solution to the problems that they have made for us. I mean, just look at everything that happened back in 2020. It's like they created an issue, and then they created the solution, which is exactly what they wanted. And out of all these solutions, the biggest one that you need to focus on is the sustainable cities and communities. Because I think that is the number one goal for them overall in this. They want to create these eco-smart cities that everyone will live in. And once again, on the surface, this might sound nice to some people, but it's not innovation. It's a way of controlling everyone. And I'm going to explain why this is. So let's talk about an eco-city, right? Because on the surface, that sounds nice. It sounds like parks and plants and sustainable products. It sounds like a utopia, which has never worked before, so I'm not sure why it would work now. But it does sound nice. However, these are the photos that they are going to show you. They're going to be like, this is what it's going to be like. And maybe at first it will be. They'll convince everyone to move into these eco-cities, or force them to, either way. But they'll be like, look how nice it is. Look how wonderful and fancy and green it is. But after a while, it's not going to look like this anymore. It's going to look more like this. There's going to be something surrounding it, or there's going to be a gate or a wall or something, and you will be trapped inside. Because this is not a paradise, this is a prison. And this is how they control people. You will be stuck in here with no way of getting out, because your only mode of transportation is going to be an electric car, the electric cars that they keep pushing. However, the difference between a gas and electric car is that electric can be shut off with a kill switch. So this is what life will look like. And if these photos look familiar, that's because they're from every sci-fi or show or teen movie that you've ever seen in your life, because they've been programming us for this. In fact, let's take a look at just a few of the shows that this type of setup has been in. Up first on the list, we've got Divergent. I don't know if you've seen this movie. It is from like 2010 era. And this is the wall that surrounded the city. Actually, the first photo I showed, I think, was also from that movie. And as you can see, there's a huge gate to get out, but nobody's going through it. Next, we've got Attack on Titan. And this one's pretty obvious. It's got the wall surrounding the entire place. And once again, they tell you this is for protection. They tell you this is for keeping bad people out. But it's really just to keep you in. And then we've got The Maze Runner. And this movie, some of these movies were all in kind of the same 2010 era where it was like teen sci-fi movies, but they were very telling of the future. So it's definitely nothing to just roll your eyes at. So you can see this huge wall, and it goes all the way around them. And for them to get out of this, they have to go through some deadly maze or something like that. And then we've got The Hunger Games, which I believe they had different districts, but they all had giant walls around them just like this. This photo actually looks more like a camp or something, if you know what I mean. And then next we've got The Giver. Now there isn't an actual wall around this one, but I think it kind of drops off at the edge, which is basically a wall because nobody's gonna fall to their death. So that keeps them all trapped in. And just remember, that's the whole point, is to keep you trapped in. These walls aren't going to be like you can just climb over them. They're just a little gate or a little fence. It's like, no, you're not going anywhere. And if you try to go somewhere, I would say they'll probably gun you down. But of course, it's only going to be us regular people on the inside. It won't be the elites. They'll be on the outside. They're not going to be in there with you. They don't want to live crammed in a box. So yeah, this is what your eco city is going to look like. And these are the photos that they're going to feed you, but it's not the truth. And I also know what you're thinking, I'm getting the heck out of America. I'm leaving. I'm not living like this. Well, this isn't just the USA. This is all over the world. This is a sustainable project that they have going on in Singapore right now. And it's very similar to what I just showed you. And they've actually already built something similar to this in Saudi Arabia called The Line. I'm sure you may have heard of it, you may not. But it is a prototype to what we're going to see. So let's talk a little bit about some of these solutions. Up first on the list is no poverty, which sounds great until you remember what country you're in. Last year in our country, we had almost 600,000 homeless people. That's insane. Just look at the tent cities that we have. I mean, in California, we've got them in Arizona, Texas, Pennsylvania. They're everywhere. And what does the government do? Oh, well, they send in police officers to shut them down and I guess tell them to go home, which is the tent that they were living in. Or even better, they will arrest the homeless people for being homeless, I guess. So I'm not really sure if I want the government to be the ones to solve this problem. Because I'm not so sure that the solution would be that good. Alright, well that's just one issue. That's just one problem. So let's move on to the next one, which is zero hunger. Wouldn't that be nice to have zero hunger in the United States? Which, in theory, we should already have, because America is one of the largest food wasters in the entire world. But let me tell you why there's going to be zero hunger. It's because the food that they're making is going to be created in a lab, and it won't really be food at all. I mean, we've already seen them 3D print meat, which is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. Not to mention all of the plant-based food, burgers that are so loaded with chemicals and estrogen. I don't know why people order this. But all of this fake food just makes me think of one thing, which is a movie that I've seen. I don't know if you've seen it, but this is what it's gonna be like. They are going to try to feed us chemicals and call them food. And they've been programming us for this for a very long time. That somehow we are going to destroy the world and run out of food, and all of a sudden we'll have to make all of our steaks in a lab. Or maybe we'll just eat Soylent Green. Next, let's talk about good healthcare. And actually, this doesn't say good healthcare, it says good health and well-being. Coming from the same people that are constantly making us sick. And then charging us for it. This is the country that cannot, for some reason, provide decent healthcare without charging us insane amounts of money. I can't tell you how many people I know who have medical bills just stacked up because they can't pay them. They can't afford them. Because in capitalism, even your health is about money. So these are the people that are going to feed us food full of chemicals and pesticides and crap. And then we're going to get tons of health problems. And then we're going to go to the doctor and get prescribed medicine that costs us more money. And then we're going to pay our bill after that. So I don't think I'd trust these people with my health as far as I can throw them. This is a list of America's most common health problems, which half of them have to do with your diet. Actually, more than half, probably. This is sad, and this is less of a problem in other countries. I'm not going to say it's not a problem, but it is by far the worst in America. We do not have access to healthy food. We do not have access to good medical care. And I guarantee you, this is not a problem that they are going to fix. So let's move on to quality education. I don't know why they would want to change their education. It's already so good at brainwashing children, which is exactly what they want. They want to rip kids away from their family and brainwash them with their agendas and their criteria and their fake history. And then they strip them of all their creativity and any curiosity that they might have, or questions that they might have get shut down because you're not allowed to ask questions in this world because you might find answers that they don't want you to find. I firmly believe public schools, any schools, you could send them to a private school. They are the worst place for children in the entire world. From the moment you step in that place, your mental health is declining. I mean, just look at these places. They look like prisons. They don't look like schools. Or at least what you'd want a school to look like. Here is a picture of a school, right? Surrounded by fences, bricks, kind of scary looking. Here is a picture of a prison. Kind of looks the same, actually. And here's another photo. I honestly, I can't remember if this is a prison or a school, so if that doesn't tell you that they all look the same, I don't know what does. Alright, next we're going to talk about gender equality, which is kind of a touchy subject, but that's okay. I feel like when people are usually talking about gender equality, they're talking about women versus men in the workplace, right? And it's usually that women don't get paid enough, they don't get the job positions they want, they get harassed at the workplace, things like that. And while all those things can be true, I know that they're true. I've had these things happen to me. They can also happen to men. Not everyone gets the position that they want at their job. People can get harassed. Things like that happen all the time. And I do not condone these things, but they can happen to men and women. But that's not what I want to focus on when I'm talking about gender equality. I want to focus on what they have done and how they have made this a weapon against us. So this started back, I believe, during World War I, when there was all this propaganda to get women to come work at factories because all the men were in war. So they were like, come work for us, we need people to help produce these products. So they did. And it kind of spiraled after that. It went into World War II. Women were working, they wanted to work, and it made them feel confident and good and whatever. And here's the underlying issue with that. So, women have other things that they typically do. They take care of their children, they clean the house, they upkeep everything. They are, the ones behind the curtain doing everything. And so when, we go to work, all of that gets thrown to the side. So here's kind of what happens. And this is what the government wanted to happen. First off, women sacrifice time with their children. They have to take their children to a daycare when they go to work, or they take them to a school, which once again we just talked about. And, the children don't want to be there. They much rather be with you. I'm sure every mom has had that experience where they've taken their child to the daycare or whatever for the first time, and the kid just cries and screams and grabs onto their leg and is like, don't leave me here. I don't want to be here. And they're rightfully so to do that. You shouldn't be leaving your child at a strange place that they don't know, with people they don't know, learning God knows what. But anyways, that is just the first step, right? You take your kid to these brainwashing schools. And then you go to work and you do a normal work day. And you're probably stressed out. You probably have a lot to do. It's just a lot. And when you come home, you're expected to do everything you would have normally done in the first place, right? So you get to come home, you get to cook dinner, you get to clean, you're taking care of your kids still, you get to do the laundry, you get to do the dishes, you get to do it all. So you're working twice as hard. And for what is the question? For what? These corporations? They don't care about you. They care about their profits. They care about numbers. Of course they want you to come work for them. Of course they want more workers that they can pay low salaries. So I think this is the real problem with the gender equality issue. And I don't think they're going to fix it because they're the ones who caused it. Not to mention all of the media that pushes men and women away. There are so many TV shows and movies and cartoons that just make people look so bad. They'll make like the dads look stupid, or they'll make the parents always arguing or something like that. It really just pulls people apart, and that's the whole point. Okay, next we're going to talk about clean water and sanitation. Which is funny because a bunch of toxic chemicals just got dumped into our water supply. I'm sure you all have heard of by now the train wrecks that are going on. It started with Ohio a couple weeks ago, and there's been train wrecks all over the United States, all coincidentally carrying toxic chemicals. And the most recent train wreck, I believe, happened in Michigan. And so, of course, they're telling everyone that it's fine and everything is okay. They're sending out the professionals. But yet, people have concerns of acid rain. They've had to go out and buy bottled water because they can't drink the water. People have been finding like little flecks of who knows what on their car. And during this, it's been raining the last week or so. And they've still been letting kids go outside at school, like playing out in the rain. So this is definitely an issue. So just for fun, I wanted to take a look at bottled water because these people have been having to buy bottled water to drink. And let's take a look at what is in the bottled water. So, our first ingredient is vapor distilled water, which is fine, but distilled water has minerals stripped out of it. So, you know. But our second ingredient is calcium chloride, which is already an issue. On the second ingredient, calcium chloride, if ingested, can lead to burns in the mouth and throat and excess thirst. So that's interesting. So you're drinking water because you're thirsty, and if there's calcium chloride in it, you're going to be more thirsty after you drink it. But let's move on to the third ingredient, which is magnesium chloride, which also has harmful side effects. It says includes many harmful effects. Skin irritation and burns when touched or ingested, gastrointestinal irritation. I don't think this should be in the water. I don't think anything but water should be in the water, so I'm confused why there is multiple ingredients. These are not the people we should be trusting with our water supply. Clearly, they do not care. These are the people who already put fluoride in the water supply. I mean, they're trying to kill us using the most basic need for life, which is water. Not only do they purposely try to poison our water, they also put all kinds of byproducts in our water from these huge corporations and runoffs and just all this crap. However, at least they're putting the ingredients on the label because sometimes they don't even do that. Here's an article I found about that. But my point is, we should not be trusting the government to handle our water supply and expect it not to be full of these poisons. Okay, next on the list is affordable and clean energy, which once again sounds like a good idea. But the things that they are pushing are not actually clean energy. Let's start with electric cars, right? There's a big push for getting an electric car, getting rid of your gas-powered car. So let's talk about this for a second. So how do electric cars work? Well, they have a battery inside that you charge by plugging it in, and it charges with electricity. Okay, how is electricity made? Here is a diagram of how electricity is made. So you put some type of fuel in. You have to put coal or petroleum or gas in to make this work, right? So you're still using some type of natural resource. And then it boils, creates steam, turns the turbine, and generates electricity that is sent out to your home. Now, that could have been explained a lot better, but I'm not a professional, so in general, this is how it works. But I feel like they have everyone convinced that this happens in the most clean way possible, that there is no natural resources or fossil fuels or anything going into this to produce electricity, which couldn't be farther from the truth. The next problem is that the batteries that are in these electric cars cannot be recycled. They cannot be reused. Once they're done, they're done. So that leads to this. Junkyards full of electric cars, just like gas cars. I mean, it's all the same. This thought that electric cars are so eco-friendly is not real. This isn't about being eco-friendly, though. This isn't about the environment. Our government does not care about the environment. What do they care about? Well, they care about money, they care about power, which this gives them both things. If everyone has to replace their car, there's the money. And if you can have an electric car that can be controlled remotely with a kill switch, there's the power. You're not going anywhere without their okay. So these cars are not environmentally friendly, and we see the same problem with solar panels. They can't be recycled, they can't be reused. Once they're done, they're gone. So don't let them fool you into this. Let's move on to decent work and economic growth. This one's almost laughable at this point with everything that's happened. I mean, there are so many people unemployed or underpaid, just trying to scrape to get by. And not to mention the inflation that's been going on. I think this one kind of speaks for itself. Next is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Now, I already talked about these eco-cities that they're wanting to set up a little bit, but I didn't really talk about how your typical day-to-day life would look. So let's discuss that. So since you're living in such a compact city, there would be no more of your regular housing, no more houses in general, especially for the regular population, right? You'd be living in a tiny, tiny apartment that is more like a box. You'd still probably be working too much, too often. But this time, you wouldn't have a vehicle to get there. You'd have to take a electric car or walk or something. Which, I don't mean to make that sound bad. There's nothing wrong with walking or biking to work. But there is a problem when you just don't have access to the other amenities in life, like a car. Because you wouldn't be able to own anything. There's nothing that you would own. They want to take everything from you. You're definitely not owning a vehicle. You probably won't even own your apartment. You'll rent forever, indefinitely. Because the government will own this entire city. They'll own all of it. That you won't say or do or walk anywhere that they don't want you to. So this is the infrastructure that they're talking about. Picture 1984. It might look nice on the outside with the plants and the trees and whatever, but on the inside, it's just a dictatorship. Or worse. Alright, so we're moving on to reduced inequalities. Now, I feel like we already talked about this a little bit with the gender equality, so I'm not going to dive into this too much today. And the one after that, sustainable cities, we talked about the eco-city. So, I'm going to move on to responsible consumption and production. Now, this one always upsets me for many reasons, but let's talk about it a little bit. The first reason that this is upsetting is that we always hear from our government and from these corporations that we are the ones that are causing these problems, right? We are using too many plastic straws, and we always use too many plastic bags, and all of this stuff is our fault, we are just the worst, apparently. But here's the issue. We are just the consumers. Regular people are just consumers. They are not creating these products. They are not the ones selling them at these big box stores, right? These companies are the ones in charge of this. They are packaging their products in plastic and other packaging that is not sustainable. And it's not our fault that we go to the store and try to buy something and everything is packaged in the same plastic crap. This responsibility does not fall on us. It does not fall on the consumer. It falls on the business and their business practices. Stop blaming yourself for using a plastic straw instead of buying a reusable one. Because I'll tell you something. I've seen just as many, reusable bags thrown away in the dumpster as plastic bags. And it's like, are we really changing anything here by doing this? These businesses need to be held responsible for the products that they are producing. They also need to be held responsible for the chemicals that they are putting in the products, but I will talk about that at a different time. Some of these businesses are now changing what their packaging looks like. It's still the same plastic, but they are changing it so that when it is in the dump, you can't recognize it. If they always package their soda in a green package and then they change it to clear, there's a reason that they're doing that. They don't want you to know. They want you to blame it on some other company, not the soda company, maybe like a water company or something. This is not a consumer's fault. The individual consumer is not wrapping vegetables in plastic. Vegetables and fruit that already have a natural packaging on them from nature. These photos that you always see of landfills and of trash in the ocean and all of that, that is because large corporations are producing these products for mass consumption. It's not your fault if you want to go down to the store and grab a Coca-Cola. No. Coca-Cola is disgusting, but that's another topic for another time. It's not your fault as a consumer. Okay, we're going to move on to climate action. Now, this is a big one that you see being pushed right now. It's all about climate change, and there's a hole in the ozone layer. And we've only got years to live or something like that. We're using up all the oxygen by breathing. It's always something, and it's always our fault. Just like the last one, it always ends up being our fault because we're living in their world, clearly. That's what they're telling us. But none of these things are true. This is our world. And climate change is a bunch of lies. And even if it wasn't a bunch of lies, once again, it's not our fault. It's not your fault for breathing. It's not your fault. I hate when people are constantly trying to make you feel bad about being alive. Meanwhile, our government is putting chemtrails in the sky. They're dropping heavy metals on us, making us sick, making us weaker, making the air quality low. Corporations are the ones polluting. If anyone is polluting, it's them. They're dumping things into our water, all kinds of runoff. And apparently now there are trains with toxic chemicals coming in and crashing and dumping it into our water supply. The question we should be asking ourselves is, why are there toxic chemicals on these trains and where were they going? And then we could also jump back and talk about the responsible production again. You know, these are the people who are polluting the planet with plastic, these large corporations. Our government doesn't have any regulations on this, and then they put it on us. They put it on the consumer to fix production problems. So don't believe this crap that you're hearing about climate change. It is to get you to comply with their rules. That's all it is. It's about power, and it's about control. Okay, next is number 14, which is life below water. This one's kind of interesting because, well, just like the other ones, it's very deceiving. When you think of life below water, you're probably thinking of this. You know, coral reef, sea animals, fish, turtles, whatever. But if I had to guess, this is not what they're actually focusing on. Life below water probably means something more like this. These people, these elitists, are wanting to live underwater. Now, your question might be why? Why would you want to do that? But I'm sure that they have their reasons. Probably has something to do with, well, maybe destroying life on the surface, but also escaping from something, whether that is people or the wrath of God, possibly. Any of those options. These people definitely want to live underwater. You see hints at it in TV shows and movies and music about living underwater in the future. So after life below water, you've got life on land. And I think this is going to kind of fall into the same category as the eco-cities, but in a different way. This is how they're going to convince you to move into these places, right? If you're not on board with living in a tiny city surrounded by a giant wall, They're going to be like, oh, well, we need to save the environment and save the animals and regrow everything. We've destroyed the environment, which in reality we haven't. If you take a step outside the city, you'll realize there is tons and tons of rural area. I don't know how anyone can believe this, especially if you live somewhere that's not a big city. There is so much space. We are not overpopulated. We are not ruining the climate. Okay? All of this is lies. And they are going to tell us these lies to get us to comply with what they want, which is to control us, to move us into these cities and have complete control over us. And I know that a lot of people are probably going to be like, well, how do you not believe in climate change when all this stuff is going on? You know, rivers are drying up, there's been a lot of hurricanes, there's been really crazy weather, and I understand. I'm seeing the same things that you are. It is not the real climate, though. This is not happening because it's natural. This is weather manipulation. The elitists of the world, the governments of the world, they have the technology to manipulate and control weather. And I know that sounds crazy, but they've had this technology since before World War II. So that is why you're seeing extreme weather. And that is how they're going to convince you that there is some type of climate change and that we are the problem and that we need to be moved into these eco-cities. Last but not least, we are going to talk about peace, justice, and strong institutions, as well as partnerships for the goals. So, once again, this sounds great on the surface. We all want peace, we all want justice, but in our track record of this country, we don't have any of those things. There has never been peace, and I guarantee you there has not been justice. However, we have had strong institutions, like prisons and our court systems that are complete you-know-what. Here's the issue with this. We have removed morals from our country. Out of all of these solutions on this page, you don't see anything about God. You don't see anything about the Bible or Jesus or any of those important things. You cannot remove morals and expect your solutions to these problems to actually work. If the government doesn't care about you and has no morals, all of these things are going to be horrible. And that's exactly what they're going to be. Without Jesus, there will be no peace. There will be no justice. Because they don't care about that. All of these solutions are for show, to get you to agree and to go along with. I mean, just look at some of their other rules. Look at the Georgia Guidestones. I wonder who put those there. Talking about population control, talking about leaving room for nature and not reproducing. Do you really think these things are of God? Because they're not. And these agendas are meant to destroy us. And that is what they will do. Lastly, I want to talk about Agenda 21, which is the last agenda that came to fruition. If you never heard of this agenda or don't know what it's about, it had everything to do with what happened in 2020. In October of 2019, there was a conference held called Event 201. And it was an event to practice what would happen if there was a world pandemic. And 3 months later, there was. These things are planned and orchestrated way ahead of time. And I don't mean just a year before or 2 years before. I'm talking 40, 50 years before, or more. That agenda took place, and this agenda will too. So it's important to be vigilant and watch for these things, because this is not a joke, and these things will happen before or during 2030. Alright, thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. If you were able to listen to this entire long video, props to you. I know it was forever long, but there was a lot of information I wanted to get in here. I appreciate you all, so hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless you, and thanks for watching.